What causes you to lose hope? I hope you've never been in a situation in which you've been bereft of hope. But my guess is you probably have. And the reason why I say that is because I've gone around recently asking people this very question. What causes you to lose hope? And they have been able to respond very quickly, almost reflexively, as if they've lived through seasons of life without hope. First person I spoke to said that what has caused him to lose hope in the past is a feeling of abandonment. That he's gone through some difficult periods of life, and it seemed like his family and friends had abandoned him, and that caused him to lose hope. Another friend I spoke to talked about working very hard to achieve a goal or to acquire something, and his efforts were met with repeated unfavorable results. And after all that trying, all that striving, all that effort, when he kept coming up short, that caused him to lose hope. A woman I spoke to talked about financial difficulties, that had a way of sapping her hope in the past. Another woman spoke of chronic pain, the kind of chronic pain where you go to see multiple doctors and they cannot find any way to relieve your pain. And you turn to the Lord and you pray to Him for healing, but that healing doesn't come. And over time, that chronic pain has a way of breaking one down and seeing hope disappear. Another person that I spoke to talked about, hey, we have a worldview. We have a way of seeing the world. And we have really important foundational beliefs. But sometimes as we go forward in life, we see those beliefs begin to crumble before our eyes. And that can cause one to lose hope. I think loss of a way of life can also cause us to lose hope. And I think about a person who their entire life has been built around their job, their work. And maybe like a coal miner in, say, Kentucky or West Virginia, that they lose their job because the industry has become more and more automated. And then they find out, wow, a huge part of my identity has been lodged in being a coal miner. Can't be a coal miner now. Now what am I going to do? How should I see myself? How are other people going to see me? How am I going to provide for myself and my family? What am I going to do now? I've built my whole life on this vocation. When you lose that loss of way of life, that can cause a person to lose hope. I'm sure you can think of many other examples. I think one thing that can cause us to lose hope is that when our hope is exposed as being false hope. Let me give you an example. Years ago when I lived in the UK, I read a single volume treatment of World War II called All Hell Let Loose by Max Hastings. And in the very first chapter, titled Poland Betrayed, we can get a sense of how hope, false hope, can betray us. Listen to this. During the summer of 1939, Gone with the Wind, Margaret Mitchell's novel of the old American South, enjoyed a surge of popularity in Poland. Somehow I considered it prophetic, wrote one of its Polish readers, Rula Langer. Few of her compatriots doubted that a conflict with Germany was imminent because Hitler had made plain his commitment to conquest. Poland's fiercely nationalistic people responded to the Nazi threat with the same spirit as the doomed young men of the Confederacy in 1861. Like most of us, I believed in happy endings, a young fighter pilot recalled. We wanted to fight. It excited us, and we wanted it to happen fast. We didn't believe that something bad could really happen. When Artillery Lieutenant Jan Karski received his mobilization order on the 24th of August, his sister warned him against burdening himself with packing too many clothes. "You aren't going to Siberia," she said. "We'll have you on our hands again within a month." A New York Times reporter wrote from the Polish capital, "To hear people talk, one might think that Poland, not Germany, was the great industrial colossus." Mussolini's foreign minister, his son-in-law, warned the Polish ambassador in Rome that if his country resisted Hitler's territorial demands, it would find itself fighting alone and quickly be turned into a heap of ruins. The ambassador did not dissent, but asserted vaguely that some eventual success might give Poland greater strength. Well, that was soon to be revealed as false hope, because shortly thereafter, the Germans invaded using blitzkrieg to overrun from the west, and the Soviets attacked from the east. And in a short period of time, Poland lost its sovereignty. It lost a part of its way of life. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the most traumatic event that happened to ancient Israel in the Old Testament, a time that robbed many of the people of Israel of its hope, the sacking of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple. During the final years of King Josiah's reign in Judah, there was a changing of the guard taking place. You will recall, for quite some time, the Assyrian Empire had been the undisputed superpower of the ancient Near East. And yet during those final years of Josiah's reign, there was a new juggernaut emerging in the region, and those were the Babylonians. Now, I would imagine that the people of Judah had confidence that they would be okay in the face of this new superpower in the region. And you might push back and say, why, Keith? Why? I mean, when you think about the northern kingdom, they were conquered in 722 BC by the Assyrians. And I would say, yeah, but Judah was spared. And that probably gave them some confidence that they would be okay. Furthermore, Jerusalem, the city of David, had not been conquered since King David took the city in 2 Samuel chapter 5 from the Jebusites. So it had been untouched for a very long time. But as important as the city of David was, because that's where the king resided, it was most important for the temple. This was the place where God chose that he wanted his temple to be built and he wanted to be worshiped. Surely the Lord would not allow his temple to be destroyed. Furthermore, when you study a little bit about the mindset of many of the people of the ancient Near East, when they looked at warring armies, they believed there was, in a lot of ways, a contest between the gods that the armies worshipped. And so the victorious army was victorious because the god or the gods that army worshipped were superior to that of the vanquished. Surely the Lord would not allow Judah to be conquered. I mean, this would be very detrimental to his name, to his reputation in the region. The Lord would not allow his people to be conquered or his place of worship to be destroyed. And yet, even though there was probably quite a bit of confidence, quite a bit of hope that Judah would be fine, it turned out to be false hope. Let me take you back to 2 Kings chapter 23. There was a lot of great things going on during the time of Josiah's reign. You will recall that the book of Deuteronomy was rediscovered, that the temple was repaired, and that the Passover was reinstituted. And yet, in verse 26, however, the Lord did not turn from his fierceness of his great wrath with which his anger burned against Judah, because of all the provocations with which Manasseh had provoked him. This was a wicked king that had preceded Josiah and had led the rest of Judah into sin against the Lord. The Lord said, I will remove Judah from my sight as I have removed Israel. And I will cast off Jerusalem, the city with which I have chosen, and the temple of which I said, my name shall be there. So doom was just around the corner. King Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonians invaded Judah. Israel would not know another godly king after Josiah. There were a series of wicked, inept kings. Nebuchadnezzar took advantage of that. And so with each successive invasion, he invaded 3 times. He enslaved and took away people of Judah into exile. Now, in the face of the third rebellion against him, around 586, 587 BC, he sent his army back, and they destroyed Jerusalem and destroyed the temple as well. It's difficult for us to appreciate how devastating the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple had to have been for all of the inhabitants of Judah. I've never met anyone in my life who has seen their homeland invaded, conquered, and then ceased to exist, wiped off the map. And yet that is what Babylon did to Judah. You can only imagine the crisis of confidence that the people of Judah had in the Lord. How could the Lord allow this to happen? What does this say about the Lord? Maybe he has completely rejected us. Maybe we are forsaken. Or maybe he is weak. Maybe the Babylonian god Marduk is more sovereign, more powerful than our God. Will we ever live to see our homeland? It had to have been a very, very difficult time. And yet, in the midst of it, while the final siege was going on, the Lord brought good news to his prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah at the time was imprisoned by King Zedekiah of Judah. And even in the midst of that, the Lord brings good news. This is in Jeremiah chapter 33, a prophecy of restoration. I'm going to begin reading in verse 6. Behold, I will bring it to health and healing. That's a reference to Jerusalem. And I will heal them, and I will reveal to them an abundance of peace and truth. I will restore the fortunes of Judah and the fortunes of Israel, and will rebuild them as they were at first. I will cleanse them from all their iniquity by which they've sinned against me, and I will pardon all their iniquities by which they have sinned against me, and by which they have transgressed against me. It will be to me a name of joy, praise, and glory before all the nations of the earth, which will hear of all the good that I do for them. And they will fear and tremble because of all the good and all the peace that I make for it. And there's still more prophecy of future restoration, even as the judgment of God is being meted out against Judah. I'm going to skip down to verse 14. Now we get some messianic prophecy. Behold, days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will fulfill the good word which I have spoken concerning the house of Israel and the house of Judah. In those days and at that time, I will cause a righteous branch of David to spring forth, and he shall execute justice and righteousness on the earth. In those days Judah will be saved, and Jerusalem will dwell in safety. And this is the name by which it will be called: the Lord is our righteousness. And we know that Israel is restored. It does become a nation again. And we see this in the first century as Jesus was walking around as God incarnate during his earthly ministry. Jesus is the anointed one, the Messiah that fulfills those last few verses that I read there in Jeremiah 33. I want to encourage you. I don't know whether you're filled with hope or feeling hopeless, but I can promise you this: when you put your hope, you put your trust in Jesus Christ, you will not be disappointed in the end. And so now, as we enter into the Advent season, and we remember Jesus' first coming as a baby wrapped in swaddling clothes in a manger, we also look forward to his future coming, when he will come again and restore all things, bring peace and bring justice. So as we await that time, there will be ups and downs in life, but let us continue to hope in Christ. God bless you.